we wanted to play that twice for you because I saw you rocking out to that theme.
Well, yeah, I need one for each eye. So you got to keep my peripheral vision right. So there you go.
I tell you, I can see everybody in their little queue window, and all of a sudden they're like this when that theme starts playing. I'm glad you like it, my friend.
I like those very young pictures of both of us too on there too. In the opening credit, I'm like, who are those kids?
You mean these two young chaps?
Oh God, those guys. Who are they, man? You know.
What?
We've got and Wilson. You know, something like that.
We have two New York kids in the house here, Jim Masters, and in the house, in our houses, right? Or our secret locations. East Coast here, West Coast, but he's an East Coast kid growing up in New York City. Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs is here. An iconic and legendary actor, singer, writer, producer, director. We were just chatting. This guy is omnipresent. If you think he was just on Welcome Back, Kotter, and then that was it, there was so much before, so much during, and so much after. You're amazing, my friend, and welcome.
I serve bagels and cream cheese too, so I do everything. Okay, I got you. It's a Levy's Jewish Rye, New York style, man. You know how it is.
That's it. So you grew up in New York, but there are some connections to beautiful Santo Domingo as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My mother was born there.
That's a beautiful area. Have you gotten a chance to go back to visit? Or there?
I've been to Santo Domingo. My mother was born in Santo Domingo until she was almost 6, and then the family moved to St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, which I've been through many times. My 2 oldest brothers, Raymond and Oliver, and my other sister, Louise, were born there. And but I'm from, as the rest of us, the other 6 kids, we're all from New York City. But I've been to St. Thomas many times, and I met a lot of my family from Santo Domingo, but I have not made that venture yet. I don't know what's holding me up, but I will get there.
He will get there. Well, you've been everywhere, my friend. It's when we were putting the show together and I was looking at all these incredible things you've done. It is extraordinary. What inspired you early on in New York to want to go into the arts and to want to go into acting and performance?
You know something? I'll tell you what's interesting. My cousin, rest in peace, his name is Leroy Davis, what we called him Sonny, and he was a singer. And he came up from St. Thomas, was staying with us, and he had a group called Sonny and the Isles. And I remember he got some phone calls so people wanted to come down to record, and I got the calls, and I was all enamored. My God, my cousin's a star. And he had a band, and he had the resume pictures. I don't know if that was an inspiration for me, but it definitely gave me an excitement. But the turnaround for me, or at least the pinnacle of it for me, was a Sidney Poitier movie called Edge of the City. He did with John Cassavetes. And I saw Sidney as a kid. I didn't know what I was watching, but I remember he did a scene where he was talking about this guy who was played by Jack Warden, and Sidney was into it. He says, man, he said, he is nothing, and all that vibrato. And I was like, I want to do that. So that was the peas that got planted in me. Sidney, you did it.
Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
Oh, I got to know him very well. Pretty close.
One of the best, huh? Class act all the way.
Nice man, always personable, always open to talk. He's a funny guy because when he was doing his movie, I think it was which one was it? A Piece of the Action, and I wanted to have a meeting with him on that movie. And when he got through, he was getting ready to go. He had a partner named Melville Tucker, who was his producer, and they were going to go play tennis. And Sidney was good, and just he was comfortable. He says, now, Larry, I'm going to go play tennis with Melvin, and I am going to kick his ass. I said, okay, Sidney, okay. You do it, bro.
And only he could say it that way with finesse.
Yeah, and all that vibrato. So it was
right. Totally That's incredible. That was a great Sidney too.
Oh my God.
Now, this might not be news to the public at large, but I think it's a pretty cool thing. And it's a cool thing that you did, of course, with your name, which is a terrific name, Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs. How could you ever forget that? But
it's a real deal.
The hyphen has been moved around here and there, if in fact there really is a hyphen. But
let me tell you what happened.
Only right?
And now you're going to know, and you're going to keep it locked. No, it's for the world. When I first came out, started as an actor when I was 15 years old, back in 1969 and stuff. I just went by Larry Jacobs because everybody calls me Larry. Then when I was about 18, I decided to use my full name, Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs, and they kept telling me my name was too long. I said, too long for what? They said, well, it can never fit on a marquee. I said, Well, there was Stanley, Myron, and Handelman. There was Engelbert Humperdinck. What about those long names? So they tried to give me a hard time about it. So I put a hyphen where it's not grammatically correct between Lawrence and Hilton, not Hilton and Jacobs, just to mess with people. And as a joke to me to this day, my little silly joke where I see the hyphen going back and forth and back and forth. I just did it because I'm just a mischievous guy, and I was getting back at them. Born rebel, there you go.
Born rebel, absolutely. And so sometimes the hyphen is there, and sometimes it's not. It depends on how the wind blows.
Yeah, man. As long as they get it on the checks right, it doesn't make no difference to me. Let me sign my checks, so we're in good shape.
Now, you are again the fifth of 9 children. Your dad Hilton and your mom Clothilda. Tell us about them and the family. Were they funny? Were they entertainers? Did any of this rub off on you early?
My mother was just beyond amazing. She was a brilliant cook. She was a seamstress. She was a pastor. She had so many elements, and she was like the gatherer of the world. She was always cooking for the neighborhood or inviting people over to either make clothes for them or just to counsel them because they needed some religious flavoring and all that. So some of that kind of flavoring got into me as a through line. Not so much to say I was going to become an entertainer. I wasn't thinking of that as a kid, but I was there. My father was a merchant marine for up until my early adult life. So he's not home a lot. He was gone 3.5 to 3 weeks a month. He was gone. So I was the oldest son at home, although I had 2 older brothers and a sister. They had moved on. So I was like, big brother dad, but I didn't think it was abnormal. I just, that's the way it was. So I was changing diapers and cooking food. And I'm talking about changing diapers, no Pampers, real diapers, and all that. And so the background of my family is that very festive. We're a West Indian family. So West Indians are very vibrant and full of love. And we always had a lot of family gatherings. The way I grew up is I had 5 brothers and 3 sisters, but all my other cousins and my families had 5 and 6 kids. So it's like I grew up with 30 brothers and 30 sisters because we were always sharing back and forth, and we're always just a real close-knit family, which still happens to this day. We're lucky with that part. That is all stemming from my mother mostly. Just a very across-the-board person who just always seemed to have a good word for somebody, but was nobody's fool. And she's a tough guy, but was a good person, just a real great heart. So I give a lot to Clothilda, Anna Jacobs, and Hilton-Jacobs for giving me that name. At least I got his first name and not his middle name, because his middle name was Augustus. I'd have been having a lot of fights. So I'm cool.
You mentioned the West Indian connection. Some of our favorite neighbors on Long Island were from Trinidad, and the family brought over one of their family friends, Maggie, who took care of the kids when the father went to work for Revlon and the mother worked. They were originally from Brooklyn, Trinidad, then Brooklyn, then out east on Long Island. And so when the kids were going to school, Maggie watched them. And the father worked for Eastern Airlines, the mother worked for Revlon. And remember Eastern Airlines and at Kennedy Airport. And so our families were very close. They were like 2 houses down, and they had the best New Year's Eve parties ever. The food, the music
was nonstop and delicious, and man,
the hugs, the love, the warmth, and
that's because they're island people. And in the island, you have a close sector. How you join in with each other. You have a real sense of community, which is a thing that's a lost art now, a lost reality for us in the world. But that was a natural thing. So other families would take care of each other, or they invited you in like you were part of the family. And the West Indian culture is really high, shelf on that, which I'm lucky that's part of my legacy and part of my growing up, and it's in me, and I do it. I'm always taking out the world, and I don't care. I just want everybody to smile. So that's the culture. Just a real lovely people. Yeah.
Maggie's famous pigeon peas and rice.
Pigeon peas and rice. Yeah, the deal.
We've never been able to duplicate it. She's no longer with us, but we've never been able to find the exact way Maggie made those pigeon peas and rice. Unreal.
Oh yeah, the pigeon peas and rice and the callaloo, and the okra fungi, and the Johnny cakes and all of that wonderful stuff, man. Some of it I can do, but I don't do the pigeon peas and rice. I even try to do that, but I can make peas and rice. I learned how to do that. Mm-hmm.
You began the acting career in the summer of '69, graduating from the High School of Art and Design, and then you attended Wilkes University for a short time, and then
something that they have the Wikipedia Wilkes University. I never went to any Wilkes University. I don't know who made that up. Somebody's tripping.
Probably
they got,
somebody named Wilkes.
yeah, and they also have a credit saying I was in a movie called Bangers and Mash. I said, well, where's that at? So,
That's the Irish part of you?
I'm Lucky Charms. I'm Lord, okay, me lucky. And so there you go.
That is funny.
Yeah.
So then, of course, you have these opportunities. What's the very first thing for you that really paved the way, that really got you to be noticed and people said, okay, this guy's really talented. He's a go-getter. He's resilient. What was that first door opening opportunity for you?
I had worked for a few years. And when I first started out, I was doing background. And I did that for about a year and a half. I worked on anything in the world. In the early 70s, late 60s, there was so many movies that had decided to come to New York. You could just work all the time. And I did for my $35 a day and was happy to get it. But the standout role came for me in 73 when I was 19. And the movie was called Claudine. And I got in this featured role with James Earl Jones and Diane Carroll. And I realized, it was also in the middle of the time when they had the black exploitation movies or tag black exploitation. And I realized that this movie was about substance and reason. It had background. So I said, whoa, man, brother, you got to wake up here and really pay attention. And so I felt really blessed, to get that role. But that was the one that stood up for me or stood out as the beginning. Because I had a very realized role with some wonderful, it was just wonderful. But John Barry, who directed it, was a great director who had gone through the blacklist and all that and was on a comeback and just amazing stories. And
the cast that you were working with, extraordinary.
Unreal.
James Earl Jones, what was it like working with him?
James was my great buddy. We worked together twice. We worked on Claudine, and 6 years later, he had a cop show called Paris, and I did a guest shot on there where he got to rough me up. James, okay. And but whenever I would run into him, he was always real cool. A few years ago, he was doing the Broadway play Cat on a Hot Tin Roof in New York. I happened to be there. I didn't see the play, but I went backstage just to say hello. And when he saw me, he said, hey, man, come on in here. And we went into the room, and for 45 minutes, just James and I just chopping it up and talking whatever we felt like talking about, and a lot of hugs. He was just a very warm man, very real, warm man, quiet. I know in the days when we were doing Claudine, he would tell me stories of him growing up, in parts of the South. And, he was estranged from his father, who was a great actor too, Robert Earl Jones, and how he had a stuttering problem and how he had to overcome it by talking lower or talking slower became his style, but it also helped him to be able to enunciate without, stumbling on the words. So it's pretty amazing, but he was just a very inviting man. I mean that sincerely. Just really like him, of course, miss him to death, that he's moved on.
Absolutely. Like I said, you've worked with so many greats. And of course, Lou Gossett Jr. was another one who I know was a dear friend of yours who we lost not that long ago, too.
Yeah, good old Lou. I knew Lou since I was a kid, and Lou was just, again, these guys came up in a time where they just invited you in. Lou Gossett, James Earl Jones, Brock Peters, Ossie Davis, Harry Belafonte, Sidney, they were open to talking about anything with you. Later on, there was other people who came along that was the same way. Dick Anthony Williams, Ron O'Neill, Art Evans, these are the ones that were, Nathan George, all these great, wonderful actors who were of those times who would just always have an open heart to let you in. And I always felt like I was included, although I was the kid doing play readings with them in somebody's tenement apartment, like this with my script. And they would just invite me and encourage me and talk to me like I was part of the family. So that was a lucky thing that I grew up like that. In my area, everyone seemed to live around there. There used to be a tall, skinny guy in the park. He would always be shooting hoops, practicing. His name was Lou Alcindor, who later on became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He lived across the street in the other project. So what a trip. What a rich way to grow up, for me. Well, how lucky is that?
I was going to say, we've had, a lot of folks from New York who have gone on to big and bright things. How is growing up in New York and still having that New York vibe and appreciation for growing up in the Big Apple, how has that shaped who you are and what you deliver for all of us through your art?
It's in me. New York is a very in-your-face, real town. I prefer it that way. I can't stand procrastination. I hate it. And when people start getting woe is me and talking the blues too much, I said, let's try to find a way to fix something. Instead of just crying the blues, let's have an option or try to find a way to fix it. That's the New York. New York, you thrust forward no matter what. If you take a punch, you learn how to get it and you come back. Not physically, but I'm saying you come back verbally. Sometimes it's physical, who knows? But you don't let yourself sit back and just be some chump or a punk. I'm not into it. I could care less about that. New York, that kind of drive and that kind of definiteness of purpose is what New York has put into me and my heart. And I grew up with it, so it was just part of the nature. And as I've enhanced on and grew and, you know, raised kids or whatever you've done later on, I was able to, you know, employ some of that to people because I felt like I got a gift, you know, of learning how to care or to still have a sense of community or to face something as fast as I can. This is learned now. There's a learned behavior to be able to face anything that's an adversity to you and just deal with it and move on instead of just crying about it and talking about it over and over. I don't see the point in that, you know, so I try to get it to the short hand of it, not try to be quick, but try to get it down to its fighting weight. And then we keep going forward. That's what New York has done for me, to keep me definite, to keep me no punk, and to keep myself real, which I am into.
And you always have been throughout your entire life and career. You talk about, you know, Claudine, the iconic movie, one of the first groundbreaking opportunities for you. And then moving on to Cooley High, another great opportunity. Huh?
Yeah, Cooley High was matched. That came the very next year, you know, and I got to meet my lifelong great friend, Glenn Turman, who I talked to too much. No, I talked to him all the time. I talked to him a couple of days ago. I just called him and I said, what's going on? Hey, man, baby, what's up, man? I'm just landing in New York. I said, well, I just left, man. I'll talk to you later. That's Glenn. But I mean, Cooley High was a wonderful experience, obviously, you know, a coming of age movie, you know, the last days of innocence, if you want to call it that. I could relate to it a lot because although the movie takes place in 1964 and I didn't get out of school until 71, I grew up very similar to that kind of character. And so I understood that kind of backbone. And to have the experience of having a wonderful, special, brilliant director like Michael Schultz, who just knew how to manner us. He just knew how to stay out of the way and let us get it or guide us in the right direction. So we always had the freedom to find ourselves in it and be able to come through with some truth. So Cooley High is totally entertaining and a nice movie, but it also had a lot to say. And I'm so happy I was able to give that and be a part of the experience that I could share with people to get something out of it. Mostly entertainment, but there's a little bit of education in there too.
Exactly right. Yeah. And speaking of education, then you're with the Sweat Hogs.
what an education!
Right, so like that segue.
Oh man, well, those are educated kids.
I tell you. Right?
Welcome to Kotter, man, was pure. It's the most fun I've ever had in my life because you have these four young guys from New York. You know, John Travolta, Robert Hedges, Ron Palillo, Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs. We were all new to television, you know. We were all theater actors, came out of New York. So in a sense, it was like the inmates was running the asylum. We just went nuts, and they let us. To add to that, our producers was also producing Chico and the Man. So we were next door to them. So Freddie Prinze became a buddy. You know, so Freddie Prinze,
Jack Albertson, Della Reese.
Oh, man, all of that. You know, I saw them every day. You know, the first year doing Welcome to Kotter, we did it at the NBC studios where they were doing the Midnight Special and the Sanford and Son and on the Tonight Show. So I saw every and anybody walking through the hallways, you know. And I remember I saw Ethel Waters going by one. I was like, oh my God. Then I saw Lee Remick. I'm like, man, she's fine. You know, I mean, it was a trip, you know, but great years, you know. Welcome at Kotter was fun. We could be loose. I said the inmates were running the asylum. They let us, we just went hog wild with a little care. And I got the experience of, you know, being close with some people who became my family. You know, some of them have moved on. It's just John, Gabe, and I now, but we're still cool. And we keeping it moving, man. Yeah. I get a little sentimental when I think about it. You know?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, that's a groundbreaking show, and it's still in reruns and available on DVD and Blu-ray and everything else. And, you know, what was it like at that age to be on, you know, television, still vital, but then it was like king, and here you are in a network television show. You've been in these.
You know what it was for me, to be honest, you know, I was just an actor.
Handle it.
Well, I mean, you know, you learn to do that, but I'll get to that. But the beginning of it is that I had never done a TV show before. So I didn't know what that meant. I was guy who, if I got a gig, I got a gig. And when I didn't have one, then I went out and tried to find one. So when I got the job, it was just a job I got. Okay, welcome to Kotter TV series. Then we did the first 5 episodes with, you know, without being on the air. We had no idea what the impact was going to happen. Then it came out on September 9th, 75. Cooley High was also out, and Claudine, and it was pandemonium. You know, and it was crazy all the time. All of a sudden, people knew my face or even knew my name, which was blowing my mind. How do you handle it? you don't always handle it. You get overwhelmed. It's a little scary because it's weird, people knowing you or wanting to know you or touching you or wanting to know your personal business. And I'm very proud on that part. I can tell you a little funny story of it is myself and Travolta used to always hang out a lot to eat because we're both greedy. And so we were always going out eating. And we went out to the farmer's market where we always did to go get some, enchiladas and whatnot. And it seemed like on point, somebody on cue said, get them. The entire place converged on us. And we were like overwhelmed. And we wound up running back to the car. John had a old Raggedy Impala in those days. And we got into the car, and when we got, we was like, oh, wow, man, that was a trip. But then when we came down, when we let it simmer down, we was like, yo, man, we the Beatles, man. You check that out, yo. So, you just buy it. We were still kids. I was 21, 22. So was John. It's exciting, and it's a new experience. Everything is a learned behavior, like life is. You have to let a tree grow, and you have to let it nurture itself to bear fruit or leaves. That's how we do with a television show or any kind of notoriety. It's not about saying I'm this or I'm the greatest show or we got the hit or we're making a lot of money. Those things can be part of the deal, but it's about staying human, and that becomes taxing because it's happening so fast. Everybody's interested in you or they want you a lot of places, and how do you dissect that or how do you level it out? That's always a developing thing to this day. I'm a little older and I've been through it a few times, so I don't trip. I just, whatever I have to take on, I just take it on and I handle it. And I'm just me. As you can tell, I'm totally nuts. You can already tell that part, but I just keep it simple.
It's passion, and you're real and you're authentic. And that's what I love about it. That's, and other things I've seen you do, you're so convincing. And I think that's why you get all these roles, these parts where the phone has rung for, decade after decade, because you're the real deal and you have this passion and this energy. And if there's something that's not working, you're a team player. You're going to help them make it work.
I think it always should be that way. I think,
Right.
Whenever you take on any role and whoever you're working with, it should be all inclusive with everyone else. And if I don't care if you're getting paid $1 million or you're getting, $500 to do the job, you still give 1,000%. That I learned from when I first started studying acting up at the Fann Theatrical Ensemble up in Harlem in the basement of the St. Philip's Church. But Fann always said this to us. He always said, no matter how far you go, always go the extra mile. In my mind, that meant 2 miles. So you can never give yourself any fallback. As you hear people say things like that, well, you need something to fall back on and so forth. Fallback to me means that you might be defeated. So I'm not listening to that BS. That's nonsense. You keep your focus. You know where you're coming from, but you keep the focus where you're going, and you give yourself the extra steps to get there, so you can always be a little bit ahead. I already learned it all the way to when I was in the auditioning stages in the early days. I would always get to the audition maybe a half hour earlier, and my mindset was that I could thaw out if it's cold, or I can get adjusted to the room, and I can get myself relaxed, so now I can go in and try out for the part. There's always there's always time to make up your bed every day if we don't want to be lazy. So there's time for anything if we give the time, but we must allow that. Well, we have to adjust to that. We have to learn to do that. We're not all born with that. We have to learn it. And so that's what it's all about in the moments of what people might call achievement or the levels of achievement. You have to allow yourself to get there. And that's steps, one step at a time.
It is, right. Exactly. Which is interesting because, everything today is so, 6-second video and you're a star. Right.
They're in a hurry. Yeah.
Right. And
that's crazy.
Not how you did it and not how I've done it. It's the farm system. You work hard, you get, something happens, you get noticed, you move on to the next thing. And
I'm not the coach, but I'm just going to add to that. What it is that we're in the high efficiency way of living. A lot of it's to our convenience, but we become so dependent on it. We don't even ask why or how something works. We push a button. You can be talking to someone that says, oh God, I want to find out about, this museum that was down about, where is that museum? Well, let me Google it before they even try to think about it for a second or work it out or have the back and forth community of talking. So it's taken us to a higher level, but at the same time, it's given us a little bit of complacency because we don't try as hard. A lot of young people, you can't even handcuff them down to a text message, and the comprehension of holding on to something is as fast as they get it, they forget it. So that's the bit of the drag. So again, how do we change those things? Well, I don't know all the answers, but I know that we do have to have some individual time with ourselves. Go take a walk, go kiss the kids, hang out with a good friend or a relative or something like that. Or get that extra hamburger today because you just want it. Go do some everyday real things that'll keep you centered and keep you from being dependent. Last week I had to go to my dentist and I forgot my phone. My dentist is way far away. I'm way out in Foreverland, and my dentist is in Beverly Hills. And halfway there, I would say, you know something? You don't need the phone, man. You can do without it, because if there's anything you need to hear later on, it's not going to make any difference, especially if it's bad news. So so for 4 or 5 hours, I didn't have a phone, and I was fine because I didn't let myself stress over, oh my God, as a lot of people would do. And so these are things that you condition yourself with, which is what life is. We have to condition ourselves. We have to give ourselves the growing passage to get where we're going to go. We have to give ourselves a chance to, trial and error and mess up so you can get it together. The best place in the world to get yourself dumb is at home by yourself, because who's going to see you? So work it out, man. Yeah.
I like it. The best place to get yourself dumb is at home. I like it.
I mean, man, woo.
That's got to be on the cover of a book you write or something.
we got a new catchphrase. Okay,
right.
We'll go ahead and hide there.
Talking, of course, about the importance of a groundbreaking series like Welcome Back, Kotter. Do you have a favorite episode or two from that series?
Something, the one episode that stands out for me was we would do several. Today they do seasons 4 and 5 and 8 shows, but we would do 22 to 28 shows. It was a 20-second show in the first year called The Great Debate. And it was about us putting on a local telethon to raise some money for the school. And everybody in that show had a showcase moment, whether it was a Bob Barbarino or it was me doing the High Veer thing or whatever. We all had our moment. And it's amazing how you can capsule all that into a half-hour show, which is really 22 minutes and 11 seconds, and get it there and not feel rushed. Again, there's place for everything. And in that show, everybody had a chance to really show what they grew up to in that role after 22 times of doing it, 22 weeks. And so it's my favorite show because we're all beyond stupid in that episode and we're having a good time. Yeah.
You've touched, film, television, stage, music, singing career. Did the soap operas ever reach out to you and try to get you on the soaps too?
Yeah, I've been asked. I did soaps, in the early days, just little, under 5 lines and guest stars when I was 19, 20 years old and all that. And over the years, it's come around where they thought of me to be on General Hospital at one point or All My Children. It just was a conflict of timing, because you can't do it all. And so that's just the way it is, So, a gig's a gig. That's how it goes.
A gig's a gig. That's exactly right. You should be a motivational speaker. I bet you've been asked to do that too. You've been asked to do that, haven't you?
And I've done it many times, and I don't mind doing that. I just did it recently. I was in New York City about less than a month ago, and I went off to a couple of schools to speak with kids to encourage them to have a focus, to understand that there's a protocol and a passage to get somewhere. And the kids were really cool because they were inner city kids, and I know they were coming from tough backgrounds, which is how I grew up. And I just walked straight to them, And then even afterwards, I remember this was one little cute little Puerto Rican girl who was on the side, and she never said anything, but I had a feeling she wanted to say something. And the whole audience had left, and I was talking with some of the teachers, and I saw her over there, and I just went to her, and I said, "What's how you doing, darling?" I forget her name, but she told me her name, and she said, "Well, I want to ask you some stuff." I said, "Ask me whatever you like. My time is yours." And she just needed someone to talk to. I think she wanted to be an actress, but because she was 15 years old, her family thought she's wasting her time, or there's other variables, or they were putting her down and so forth. I said, well, that's part of the growth passage we have to go through. When I started out as a young actor, all my family thought I was nuts, and they thought, who are you kidding? And that's for other people. How dare you? And so you have to find your confidence out of raw nerve, which is what I was trying to tell her. I did tell her. And I said, and that's not an easy thing to attain because you're coming out of, I'm doing something where I'm not even sure if it's going to work. I just feel it. But it all starts with a feeling, some burning desire, that, makes it happen. I can remember, when people were as a kid saying, there can never be a black president. Well, we had a black president, we had black senators, we had black lawyers, we have black doctors, all that stuff came along in my lifetime. I saw measles come and go, and they cured that in my lifetime. So anything is possible if we put the energy to it and give ourselves a chance to get there. Even though we don't know the whole path, we have to put ourselves in the arena. When I first started studying acting with the Alpha Ensemble, we had a saying that Al came up with, and it was that you have to act as if. So you see yourself in the position, I am, not I can be, I am, and you achieve to making that come real. That's a simple thing, that kind of a through line. I don't forget things like that. And so I try to encourage the young people when I go around talking to them. And, I enjoy it. I really do, because I love them to ask me as many questions as they like, because I want to hear their hearts. And I don't care about who's articulate and all that BS, that's nonsense. You have what you have in you. You don't have to be some world scholar, or some brilliant, lyrical person to make a point. You can say it your way. I mean, somebody can get up and say, well, I always want to expound on the ideas of something that may be esoteric and maybe be a little bit trenchant and counterfactual. Or you have somebody say, man, look, man, I need to know what's going on because it ain't working. I get that. And we can talk like that. So, that's my way.
That's a great way to be, my friend. Even the dog concurs with the barking. I agree with that. I agree with that.
That's my lawyer.
That's another great one too. Before we talk about it, Broadway too. I Love My Wife back in like 78.
Yeah, man, I was 26 years old. That came about in an interesting way because Jimmy Walker was doing the play first, and he was already rehearsing for about a month. And I'm not putting Jimmy down, but Jimmy's not a singer. And he doesn't dance. And it was a musical. And he's replacing, the Smothers Brothers were doing it just before we became the cast. So Jimmy bowed out. And I got a call like on a Friday, and I was there Monday. And I had 9 days to learn 9 songs, choreography, the whole 9, and did it. And went on Broadway. What a world, man.
I mean, what was that like when you stepped out on that stage?
I tell you what, it was exciting. I just
in your hometown too, in New York.
My hometown, the Ethel Barrymore Theater. I just recently, I'll tell you 2 things about Ethel Barrymore Theater. The first one is I went there to see Othello recently with my friend Denzel Washington. It was good to see Denzel. But the Ethel Barrymore Theater, when I was 16, I went down there to audition for a play called No Place to Be Somebody for the part of Gabe Gabriel. Now, Gabe Gabriel was 30 years old. And High Yellow, which I'd never been. And I was 16. I looked like I was 3, but they let me audition for some reason, let me get through it. And, and just 10 years later, I wound up being on Broadway. So you can get there in the same theater, man. There is no end unless you decide it's the end. You don't win if you quit. So why do that? What's that all about,
That's right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it really is incredible when you talk about Claudine and Cooley High and Welcome Back, Kotter, and then of course Broadway, and another great one, Youngblood.
Yeah, man.
78. Another great opportunity too, and another great classic.
Just a nice movie. It was right in the middle of us doing Welcome to Kotter. It was 24 then, and it came along. It was a low budget movie, but so what? And it had a lot of heart to it. And at the time, movies go through genre, explosions every once in a while. And so there was all kinds of, gang movies and exploitative type movies. But our movie had a little bit more reason to it. At least that was my take on it. So it was interesting for me. And I was graced to be able to go do that movie at that time, and be able to bring a little more flavor to it. Nice movie.
Who does not remember the miniseries on ABC that really stopped the world? It stopped traffic, it stopped clocks, and we're talking Roots, and the legendary people that were a part of this, and people. I've always still referred to that as just. I remember it. We watched it every night. We learned so much from it. We talked about it. Everybody talked about it in school. They talked about it at work. It was so groundbreaking, and you were a part of it, and you sailed in a beautiful way in your part. How did this happen? And this is something that if nobody has ever seen this, this was on ABC, and it was a miniseries, and the ratings were through the roof. I think the only thing that ever rivaled it was the final episode of MASH. Maybe that's about it. It was groundbreaking, never really seen before on television, and you were a part of it. How did that happen? What was that like?
It came about, the producer of it, or one of the producers, it was David Walper, who also was a producer on Welcome Back, Kotter. And so he would always come down to see us in Kotter and so forth. And he didn't tell me this, but he went over to James Comack, who was the executive producer of the show. And I was doing something. And he looked at me, he says, I want that kid in Roots. It was that kind of a thing. So that's how the part came about. What I did to be able to learn a little bit about how to play the guy is I went and I watched John Amos and Lou Gossett work. I went out to the ranch where we shot out there, the Malibu Ranch, and I watched them work all day just to get an idea how to get a sense of it. Then I found my way into it. But it came, just at a good piece of timing. It was a time when they did a lot of miniseries in the early days, Rich Man, Poor Man, things like this. And Roots happened. Roots was going to be a 12-week television show. Some of the networks thought it ain't going to work. I was want to see all these black people or some nonsense like that. So they decided to put it on in 8 straight days. And of course, it made ratings history. And it became must-see TV to, chronic level. And of course, it's historic all the way. And of course, it had remarkable performances all the way down the line, from a John Amos to Madge Sinclair to Ed Asner. You just go down, Chuck Connors, Sandy Duncan, it's just Leslie Uggams, just unbelievable. The people in there, Thomas Rasulala, Cecily Tyson, of course, LeVar, O.J. Simpson was in there too. So it was just unreal. Ben Vereen, I can just keep going on. All the George Stafford Brown, Olivia Cole, amazing talents. They got to show a whole other side of what we were accustomed to seeing them as. And I went into it with all teeth. All my 23 years old, but I was into it. Yeah.
God, the amount of things that happened in your 20s.
Yeah, it was a busy time. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah.
One right after the other too, and he's appeared on Barnaby Jones.
Yeah. Well, you got it all, man. Wow.
Hill Street Blues. Yeah. I mean,
2 times on Hill Street. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So many. And Alienators, that was in 85.
Wow, man. The Annihilators, man. Yeah. Woo.
Is that another great one? Yeah.
No, not at all. But
right.
That's one of those days where I felt like eating regular. The Annihilators was a low budget movie by New Earl, which was Roger Corman's company, and they just knocked it out real quick. And they were trying to capitalize on those kind of movies we made where somebody's coming to save the neighborhood and wipe out the gang terror and all that. And that was us, the Annihilators. And so we had a lot of fun. Yeah.
And of course, this one too, LA Heat.
Oh my God! Yeah, man, another slow budget movie.
I like that.
So they had. I think they had a coffee budget to do that movie. And we shot it in 8 days. And but I saw an opportunity when they wanted me to do that. I saw the opportunity where I would be able to direct. And I saw their machine over there. So I said, well, within a year I could be directing here. And 6 months later, I was directing my first movie for them. So there you go. So it worked out.
Because you are a terrific director, producer, writer, in addition to being an actor and a singer. And that's a whole other aspect of your extraordinary career, too. He's worked with Dick Van Dyke and team on Diagnosis and Roseanne and Gilmore Girls. Folks, he's been a part of our lives for such a long time in television and film and stage. Of course, Alien Nation as well. Yeah.
There he is back there.
There he is. You everywhere. And then the role of playing the patriarch of the Jackson family, Joe Jackson, really an epic series.
Absolutely amazing. I had known the family for many years before that, so I never even knew I was going to ever play their dad. But I knew the family very well. And when it came about for me to do the movie, I think they were a little nervous. I know Joe was because I guess they thought I was going to expose things that I knew personal, but I approach a role as an actor, and it's not for me to decide other people's worlds. I have to just find the focus of what I'm trying to say so I can bring out the truth, which is trying to get it to a behavior. So we were relaxed on that, but what a role, I was 38 when I did it. I played the character from 20 to 54, and what a range to play in, and the multi-levels. What it was in the script a lot that I changed, where they had him just being an ogre and being a tyrant a lot of the times. I said he couldn't be like that all the time. He made 9 kids. It took a lot of love to do that. It took something. So in every scene, I would write, as we went through the eras, why I love my kids, so I can find the dynamic of how to play it. And so that was my through line. And I had all those kids were like wonderful to work with. Of course, Angela Bassett was terrific, and nice thing, man. Nice
You
thing.
see that connection, like you said, he made 9 kids, and you're one of 9.
And I'm one of 9. You know, it was really strange when I was talking with Jermaine before we started the movie, and he wouldn't come up for 45 minutes, just gave me every tidbit on his father in the background, which was really helpful. But I said, you know what's ironic? I said, you know, we both have come from a family of 9, 6 boys, 3 girls. One sister is fair complected. My one sister is fair complected. I said, they're almost the same age. I mean, it was just, the parallels was insane, you know. And my father was very tough, not as extreme, or maybe extreme is not the right word, but as boisterous as Joe might have been. But my father was my backbone in learning how to play that, because I know how stern he was. Because I saw him, you know, 1 week out of a month until I was almost 20 years old while he was being a merchant marine. So it was relearning him as I, you know, got to be older and so forth. And so that was my backbone, and a great multi-layered role to play. And, you know, and the thing that I thought was smartest about that movie is, you know, it's about the Jacksons, it's about Michael Jackson and eventually Janet. But what the movie really is, it's a love story between these 2 people, this Catherine and this Joseph, who met, and they had a feeling, and out of them came these amazing babies. So that was how we played it, with the wonderful director, Karen Arthur. What a great director. Nice. I
think I did a little research. Didn't you date one of the Jacksons too for a bit?
Went out with Latoya a couple of times back in the day. You know, I used to do the thing where, way back in the day, I was like 22 or something like that then. But I used to play, we had the charity basketball team called the Sweat Hawks, because of Welcome at Kotter. And we'd always play with the Jacksons, and we would tour around the city playing for charities and so forth. And so they were always there. Michael never played, but he was always there. Jackie can really play. No, he's no joke. And Latoya was always there. So we became friends, and then she was calling me a lot, and we were talking back and forth. So I just asked her out. We went to see a play, went to see a movie, and that's about as deep as it got. That was it.
That's it. Like I said, your 20s were on fire.
I was a busy guy.
You were. So again, so much television and so much in terms of film, more too, Southlander and that, and more. That was a great one, huh?
It was a lot of fun, you know. The guy who directed it was just a nice cat, and he saw me in a commercial I had done for Salon Selectives, which had nothing to do with this role, but he saw that commercial and said, I want that guy. And so that's how I wound up being in the movie. So, you know,
there's a couple of people that are they're commenting, they're welcoming you. They're in the chat section right now. They're like,
cool.
They remember when you were in the United Negro College Fund commercial. Of course, being canceled, right? Yeah.
What a trip. Yeah.
That played a lot.
It played a lot, and so many people who went on to have little careers were there, like Tomu Blackwell, who wound up playing my sister, and Claudine, my older sister, was in there. Chip Fields, Renee Watson, who's now double Emmy winner on General Hospital. Justin Lord, who's a king of commercials. Dorian Harewood, who was sitting in front of me, who became a very prominent actor. We were all on that commercial together because we were the New York kids at the time, going for those parts. And wonderful experience, you know. Nice. I think I was 19 when I did that, 1920, something like that. Pretty young.
As much as we've talked about the brilliant acting career, he also fantastic singer as well. Bandstand, Dick Clark and Company in 1975.
Look at that Afterward. My God.
Probably looking right at Dick as he's talking to you. Always like that. And again, this wonderful singing career too, and these albums. I've been a musician all my life. I've been playing keyboard since I was 14, 71. So I've been playing it for 50-something years. I played on so many records, I sometimes forget how many I played on, but that's part of who I am. I don't make a big deal out of it other than I do it, you know. But you got to keep it moving, man. As I always say, my little I mean, you got these albums. This was in 78, and you had this one too. But any more music coming our way?
We did a third album that never got released from a company called Allegiant Records. The only thing they released a single called I've Never Been Here Before. You can find it on YouTube, you know, and they play that. And I do music all the time, you know. I play on other people's sessions sometimes, or I'll sometimes do the scores for my movies I'm directing. I do the scores because I don't cost a lot, so I can, you know, negotiate with myself pretty good. So I'll do that. But I'm still in the mix. You know, I have some projects that are going to come up soon, and I'm going to do the soundtrack on 2 of them that I'm going to direct. And so, you know, keep it moving.
Have you always been good with and in tune with the business side of show business? So many people that are great, you know, at the creative side and the talent side, maybe not so much in the business side. Were you always early attuned to and aware of the fact that it's a business as well?
I got that from Al Fann. And when I was with the Al Fann Theatrical Ensemble up in Harlem, Al was a businessman. And he taught us a lot about the ethics of understanding the trials or the ups and downs of what business can be. But, you know, to not let yourself take certain anguishes as personal. It's a tough game. Let's keep it real, you know, and it changes his mind. And you have a lot of people who have imbalanced egos or self-importance. So you have to combat with that a little bit, but keep your focus on what you're after. You know, don't take nobody's you know, but at the same time, you know, so you can still be fair. Just know where you're coming from. What does that mean? You have to learn what the game is. You have to learn what a producer does or why a director is there or why a schedule must be met or there can be budgetary problems. These are things we should understand as people in the game so we can know how to section ourselves when it's time to do our job. And especially when it's time to negotiate a deal. You know what the variables can be, so you work it out. You know, I remember I had my great friend, rest in peace, Adam Wade, who was my mentor of me coming into the early days. And he would always tell me, he called me Jakes. You know, he said, Jakes, you know, you go out there during the winter months when nobody's making the rounds, you go out there. And he and I were out there all the time in the freezing rain, cold. And he says, you know, and a lot of times some people will go off and do a job. And back in the early 70s, you know, you would get $138 a day, you know, scale. And some people had gotten themselves up to $200 a day and they would not go beneath that $200. And he said, Larry, think about what the opportunity might mean. So I took that and I saw a lot of those $138 a day jobs. I would take them, you know, because it was a gig. Like when I did Death Wish for 2 days, getting shot by Charles Bronson was $138 for 2 days, but I'm still getting residuals from that bad boy today and whatnot. So that's the investment you must make and get off the high horse a little bit and all that. I'm all that as an actor and baloney, you know, come on.
Charles Bronson shooting at you. I mean, how cool does it get?
Man, yeah. He was really a very quiet, nice guy, you know, very warm. The director was a pompous guy, you know, Michael Winter. He was very English and very full of himself. And he said, before we got there, he called Bronson sir. He says, no one talks to sir other than I. He said, you guys got it? And I was a little cocky little New Yorker. I was like, man, I ain't listening to that. You know, so when I saw Bronson sitting in the chair, I said, how you doing? And he took his hand. He said, how are you, man? Sit down. And we chapped it up a little bit, man, before he shot me. So, you know, that's how you do it. You know?
That's it, I tell you.
I got the privilege of getting shot by Bronson.
Shot by Bronson. A House Divided was recent too.
Yeah.
That was
we
great.
did 5 seasons of that. It's a lot of shows, a lot of episodes.
Yeah. Also, people remember A Chance in the World.
Wow. Woo, you got them all, man. Yeah. Nice movie. Perfect Mate. Yeah. You know, which I have the DVD of that, but I have not looked at A Perfect Mate yet. So I got to catch up to myself. I haven't seen it yet.
Have they tapped you at Lifetime or Hallmark for their movies too?
No, not really. Sometimes things have come along. I did one that was on Lifetime called The Gift. It was a Christmas movie a few years ago. And that's about it. You know, I can't think of any that's come along and says, you know, put him in this, but we'll see. Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's all about the contract.
What a segue.
I tell you. In this one too, another terrific one. And, you know, this was a great one too on your business. I mean, like I say,
wow. You did the homework, man.
This was on Bounce. Well, I really wanted to show people who know you from, you know, Claudine and Welcome Back, Kotter, and other things that usually come up first in the vernacular, that this is a guy that has been doing this. Like I said, I think as soon as he came out of the womb, he was like, all right, like a Sammy Davis Jr. did. All right, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? Let's sing and dance and let's make it happen. Let's
add something on top of that. That's, you know, maybe the thrust, but we also, what it's saying is that we have to go out there and make it happen for ourselves. You have to do the hustle. You have to learn what the hustle means or the whatever wonderful, you know, lyrical way we want to say it. We have to do the work, and it takes time and steps to get there. But if you're putting yourself in that arena and acting as if, and not just being egoed out, just being focused in, then you have a chance to be able to graduate to continue the work. You know, I've been able to work, you know, over 50 something years and I'm still doing it, but it's not because I'm just a nice guy. I have to go out and make it happen, you know, and do the hustle. And it's not always about that I have to be the main lead guy. If it's a really interesting role, then why not do it, you know, and stuff like that, you know? And so you keep yourself consistent. which is what it's about. Stardom is a fleeting thing. Something that's a hit is a fleeting thing, but consistency can go on for quite a long time. So you have to find that variable to play, and don't do it. You take yourself serious, but not so serious that you're so above it all. That's just it's a waste of life, and I just am not interested in it. I never was. Celebrity means nothing to me other than it's nice, but I'm not wearing it like a badge. I mean, what does that mean? Yeah.
Do you think that way of thinking is what has helped you survive an industry that
Absolutely.
can eat you up alive and spit you out?
I mean, yes, that's a big through line of it. And, it's just, as I say, I make the joke about it, but it's true. I still have that rebel in me. I know I have a choice and I can live with it. I can work with someone or not. And if they think they want to strong arm me to work with them, then they got the wrong guy, because it should never have to go there anyway. And some people get it full of themselves. Well, I'm going to be in charge and I'm going to tell you what to do. I said, well, that's not the way to approach it. Let's talk about this if we're going to be collaborative. But if you're thinking I'm some punk you want to push around, then keep your job. And I'm saying that boldly. I don't care who hears it, because I've been that way many times in my life. So in that way, I keep going forward. But I've never been a nasty guy. I've never gotten into conflicts with anybody, because I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to waste my time or anybody else's. In going forward. But you go forward because you make yourself go forward. You have to want something. You have to work for it and grow to it, and then go chill out. Go be with your family. So take a break. Go see your kids. Be with your kids. If you have grandkids like me or something like that, you get with the babies, and you put the time in with the things that matter to you, and then you go do your work and get along with everybody. To the point where I do it to a fault, where I'm spoiling. I'm always cooking empanadas and macaroni and cheese and taking it on the set and making jackets and hats up for everybody, because I want everybody to feel a part of each other for this wonderful experience that we're going to have for this short moment. That's part of the giving process for me, and part of the growth of feeling connected. And that's what I've learned, over the years. And that's what keeps me going all the time.
How cool it is that you do that. They must love that. And did they look for it? Like, hey, did you bring the mac and cheese today, Larry?
They put in requests. I was doing a play just on the road. Jason's Lyric. They turned it into a dramatic musical, and I made like 80 or 90 empanadas. They all nicknamed them Larry Nadas. Okay, and then they would say, "Oh, what are you bringing next?" And I said, "Well, when we're in LA, I'm going to make mac and cheese. I made too much mac and cheese. I made roast chicken and all that." And then they wanted more. So what I wound up doing a lot of times, I would just take the entire cast out and the crew to wherever. We were in Baltimore. We were at a seafood place called Moe's. We were in Brooklyn. We went to a West Indian place called Mango Seed, wherever it might be. Or sometimes when we were riding across, sometimes we would mostly taking planes when we were traveling, but sometimes we'd have to take a bus connection. And on the way, I would stop at a White Castle and buy everybody White Castles or McDonald's or whatever it was, and said, "Hey, we got something to munch on until we get there." Why not? It didn't cost no bunch of money, and so what?
And was White Castle at 2 a.m.? Because that's usually when you go to get it, 2 a.m.
No, we were hitting those White Castles at 10 a.m. when they were open. We were on the road, so they were breakfast and lunch for. Yeah, man. That is the type of White Castle, 2 a.m. Yeah.
That is it. Yeah, and then in the morning when you wake up, you're like, "What did I just do? Oh my God!"
Did I eat that? But, yeah, oh yeah.
So much. Again, from music to and again, I love this shot of you on bandstand looking at Dick Clark, one of the prolific, beloved talk show hosts. He was something,
man.
Absolutely. Something recent too. Who could not, even not think about Braharty with Legacy in 2023? Tell us about that.
Something it's funny, I've done some of these shows and I've not seen them. Like you show The Contract, you show The Perfect Mate, you show Legacy. I've not seen them. I heard about it, and people are saying like on Legacy, I'm tearing up the scenery, knocking things down and all that. So I got to catch this myself. But I haven't seen. But that was a thing that came along. It was offered to me, and so we made a deal.
Is it that you're so busy going from thing to thing to thing, you don't have time to really?
Sometimes you get busy, or you have to, the way things are shown now, it's not like it's network television. You would have to either catch it on BET Plus or some streaming outlet.
And some people don't like to look at their work either. They don't like.
Oh no, they're full of baloney on that one. You got to see.
Yeah, exactly.
And see where you're progressing. You don't have to live off of it, but you got to see where you're going. And I just haven't gotten into. I will. I mean, I've been hearing a lot about the Legacy thing, so I want to see it too. People seem to think it's good. So let me go check it out and see if they're right.
It is. I mean, isn't it amazing? He's in so many different things, folks. He still has to catch up watching on
I
his.
gotta catch up with myself.
He's got to binge watch himself.
Yeah. One of my brothers, my brother Eddie in New York, was telling me that he says, "Oh man, I just saw a rerun of you on the Jamie Foxx show." And I said, "Yeah, that was like over 15, 20 years ago." And I said, "I've never seen the episode. I've not to this day." So, so he said, "All right." So I don't know what that means, why that is, but it happens like this sometimes. Yeah.
I mentioned Gilmore Girls, and he was on Roseanne, episode of Roseanne or two, and Alien Nation, pretty cool.
Yeah. Alien Nation. I did 9 episodes of those, and I saw all those. And I'll catch up.
Do you a snowy weekend? But you got to come back east. You got to come back east.
We got to make it a rainy weekend in New York City with some takeout Chinese food, and I'm good to get some Coco Rico sodas. I'm good to go, man.
So the producing and the directing, tell us about some cool things that you're working on now that you're excited about. Probably there's a few things maybe you can't say yet, but you've got a lot of things that you're on the pipe.
I have a deal going on where I'm going to do 3 movies that I've written, and I'm also going to direct them all. We're almost going to do them back to back, and we believe we're going to start pre-production on this first one somewhere towards the end of July, for 4 weeks, and then they're all 5-week shoots, 4 weeks prep, 5-week shoot. I'm not going to sleep for about 2 years, that you can get ready for that one. And just briefly, the first movie is called Family, which is a family drama about a man who has 3 sons for 3 different women that they don't know each other, they don't know him, and they all meet at some desert diner that he owns. He wants to see his sons before he dies, and his sons all coming around and say, "Well, Pops, where you been, Weaselhead?" So they get into all those differences. And then the other one is called Panic, which is a horror film, which is about a guy who is held in a prison against his will, and he's in some kind of insane asylum. He escapes, and he gets away, and he swims across a creek to where he thinks he's going into an abandoned house, but he's so sleepy he falls asleep. The next day he wakes up, and a crazy lady lives there and thinks that he was sent from the heavens to marry her crazy granddaughter. I don't know where I came up with that one from, but it's truth. And then the third one is called Max, and Max is about an elderly man who's been living his own life, and everything's been fine, and all of a sudden, seemingly, he has a heart attack, and he starts getting the swings of dementia, and he has to be put into an assistant, nursing home to find himself again. By coincidence, a lady who comes in there to retro fix these places turns out to be his long lost daughter he never knew he had, and so they deal with those variables while he's still trying to go through the throes of dementia and what that might mean. So I don't want to really tap on it. It's a subtle, nice story, but and it happened to me personally, so I understand that feeling.
What's really nice is when you put the time in as you have, and you work as hard, you've worked your tail off, and you're doing this, like you say, over 50 years in the business, film, television, stage, music, all of it on camera, behind the scenes, mentoring, inspiring others, having a good time, not taking it too seriously, but being a serious professional. You've been able to find this incredible balance, which I think is really beautiful. What are some of those blessings and joys in your life that keep you going through all of it?
Something, you have to just give yourself a break. When you do the work, you do the work. And you're concentrating, you do the variables. And then for me, when the roll's over, it's over. And I just go off, every other day, I take my 2-3 mile walk. That's the New York in me still. And that's my therapy time to think about things or whatever's going on and so forth. And I'll work out still. And I just go off and I don't think about show business a lot unless we happen to be talking about it. Or, of course, you always have to have a meeting and have projects you're trying to make happen or what's going on. But, you have to just go to real life, go catch a window sale, man. Or, I say, go off and get a slice of pizza because you feel like it. Do some normal things. That's the balance that keeps me okay. When it's time to do the work, I'm 1000% into it, but I have fun. And I like to laugh a lot, and I'm always cracking corny jokes. And making us, making me laugh and making everyone else be silly. And then we do the work. Recently I did a short film with my friend Glenn Turman, who we did Cooley High together, called When They're Gone. It's a 2-person film about 2 old men who are in their 80s who meet up. They don't meet up, but every year Easter, they go to a cemetery to commemorate their deceased wives. But my wife's been gone for 30 years and he just lost his in the last 3 months. We at first have a conflict of differences. Then we decide to go out and get some breakfast, and then we discuss what it means to make this adjustment from having this true love gone from us in our lives. Very delicate and very sweet. Now, Glenn did Cooley High with me. I've known Glenn for 51 years, and we love and respect each other. That's never going to end. But we lifted ourselves up with what I call playing an actor game of performances. So those are the golden things. It's a short film. It's no bunch of money involved. We didn't care about that. We just knew that it was a good thing for us to do, and we should do something else together. So we've done it, and that's being edited as we speak. And so
that's exciting to have had the friendship with somebody like that all these years, and some of the other names, Travolta and of course Denzel and other people you've had these wonderful friendships with. That's the icing on the cake, isn't it?
Well, it's just, it's not icing on the cake so much. It's just part of the life. We all came up together. I remember back in the day when Denzel was discouraged that he wasn't getting any work, and he was going to go back to New York and get his job back, working as what they call parkies, working in the park and raking leaves wherever he did. And that was like a Wednesday or a Thursday. He was at my house hanging out, and then that Monday he went off and auditioned for a show called St. Elsewhere, and the rest is history. That happens. We're friends first. When I went to see Denzel in Othello, and I went around on the stage door to come out, and I had not seen him in about 7-8 years. The minute we saw each other, it was instant brotherhood, the hugs and whatnot. And man, you still living in that house? You still living, Larry? Man, oh man, when you gonna make so and so again? That's how we are. We're just very, very brotherly, and it's a true love, and it's just no ego nonsense in it. That's how I know him. Well, I did the same thing with Travolta, where he was they were doing the Turner Classic Movies, was going to show Pulp Fiction and have a Q&A, and I heard about it. I said, invite me, but don't tell John. And when he was on the red carpet doing his thing, and I just walked up to him, and it was an instant hug, like we had not, no time. It'd been 14 years I had not seen him, but no time was lost, and it's all over YouTube now if you want to see it. But we're people, and we're friends, and that's a lucky thing that we're still friends and still like each other and get along. How lucky is that?
It really is. You got a chance to play Warren in an episode called The Good Samaritan on the Red Fox show. What was it like for the Red Fox?
Well, I tell you, when we were doing Welcome to College the first year, they were doing Sanford and Son. So Red Fox was on the same lot as us. So Freddie, Prinz, and I would always go over to visit Red, because on any given day, Red would have George Kirby and whoever's in there, and all this Slappy White, and all these people would just be there. And it was some dirty old men, and they would tell all the stories and the snap. And Freddie and I were the kids at the campfire, listening to all those great stories and sucking it in and being with these iconic, wonderful, amazing, talented people who just welcomed us. And Freddie was 22 and I was 21 or 23, 22. And it was just amazing, And so when I finally worked with Red, I knew him for years, and we just had been cool with each other and liked each other. It was very friendly. It was very easily giving. It was no actor ego baloney and none of that stuff. It was about, okay, let's go for this. Well, you're going to top me, I'll top you. But that was complimentary, and so that's how we did it. Just nice.
Are there any folks, over the years that you wish you had gotten a chance to work with?
So I've been asked that before, and I sometimes think about it, and I said, I don't know, but I would like to do this. And this is personal. So you better listen, Weaselhead. I'm talking about you right now. I'm talking about, I want to do something. I would love to do something with Denzel, that we would have a real going at each other kind of roles or something like that. And so hopefully we can put it out there in the atmosphere, and that'll make it happen, because I just think that we will be terrific together. We completely like each other and we're respectful, but we're definitely not going to be jive with each other. We're going to definitely kick each other's butts, and that would be exciting. That would be good for me, and not because he's Denzel Washington. It's because I just think he's a good actor. And I think we can bring some great flavors together. So that's something I would like. So who knows, if that'll happen. I heard Denzel's talking about he wants to retire, but you better not, Weasel. Weasel Washington.
So he said it. I didn't.
Yeah, he's cool. Denzel's a street dude like me. He's all right.
Yeah, exactly right.
But there's, I would just like to work with anybody that wants to really bring the flavor, and I don't care if they're young or brand new or been around for a long time, as long as we can get into it and really be giving and taking, with a compliment, that would be exciting. I love new talent. I love the new energy. I like how sometimes the new talent's a little lazy, so let's unlazy them, and stuff like that.
Exactly.
I like to bring them up to speed. I'm not playing, and I'm 71, but I'm not taking any prisoners. So here we go. Let's keep it real.
You do look amazing, Larry. You know, you don't look
Yeah,
silly.
thank you. I
You
appreciate
do.
that.
You got this energy, this vibe about you, this passion that's really infectious, which I think is amazing. You were, when we were getting ready to go live on the air, he was telling you about this fantastic room he's in with all of these posters.
Oh
Tell us
my
about
God! Oh God!
the room you're.
It's my office, and I mean, you can't see everything, but I mean, there's almost everything I ever did. It's all over, the posters all over the place, and there's a shelf over there with all these different awards over the years, and you know, it's just, I mean, I don't really notice it anymore because I'm used to it, but this is my workspace. I'm here at my desk, and my computer's there, and I do my work, and I stay, you know, focused in here, and my work is my work, and of course I'm proud of that, but I'm not sitting around going, my God, I did Cooley High, aren't I great? I don't do that. You know, I do the work, try to do the best that we can, and then we move on. And if somebody can get something out of it, when some people come up to me, like recently, they've been having some Cooley High screenings because it's the 50th anniversary, and to listen to people seeing that old movie like it's brand new and responding to it, and they went with the variables at the end when it got serious, when I got killed, and Glenn gives that wonderful monologue at the end, and the audience was with us. I was just overwhelmed as Glenn was there with me, and Michael's just a director. We were like, wow, look at this, man. This is 51 years later, and people are still feeling this thing, man. That's what makes it worthwhile. That's why we do it. That's why I do it. You can leave something with somebody for a moment to say, man, that was cool. And then they can go on and do whatever else they have to do. It's all right, man. It's okay.
You know, it's great as time goes on, and like you said earlier, you put all the time in as you have, and you can pick and choose the projects that really deeply mean something to you. And looking at, you know, we all get to like sort of fine tune what we want to do and what we don't want to do, but it looks just with the body of work, it's almost as if everything you've done has been something that really has meant something to you personally.
Yeah, man. I mean, I have a couple of clunkers here and there, you know, but I mean, you always have the choice. You know, when I was 18, I was up for some movie, some silly movie, some low budget blaxploitation movie, and my friend Dick Anthony and Dick Anthony Williams was up for it too, and they decided to give it to us where he was going to play a pimp, and I was his other karate chopping co-pimp in this movie, and the script was written by accident, and I was 18 and beyond broke, and I had a chance to maybe make $3,000, which was $1 million to me back then, and I said no, thank you, and so did Dick. You know, and a lot of people say, my God, you're turning on that film. I mean, who are you to do that? I said, it's a piece of crap. You know, I don't want to do that kind of a thing. And I have a choice, and if I'm going to be, relegated by $1, then I'm a lost soul right there, because now I'm not me. I'm giving my power away, which I'm giving to nobody ever. And nobody should ever give their power away to anybody. You can never get your integrity back once you give it up. So you don't do it. So I understood that as a young actor. I learned it from Al Fann, up there in the basement of a church in Harlem. And all those wonderful people, Adam Wade and Tim Pell, who was my teacher, and so forth. And that is the drive, inside of me that keeps me centered to know that I can work. Not every film is going to be the greatest hit, and it doesn't have to be. It just have to be something you did, and you did a good job, and you move on. And people can dig it. People look at LA Heat, which is a movie I did, when I was 35 in 89, who I don't think is good at all. But a lot of people say, oh, my God, I love that movie. And I'm like, well, I don't know what crack pipe you guys are on, but okay. So it's at least, one person's treasure is another person's trash. You know how that goes.
Isn't that funny how that works? Sometimes you do something, you're in something, you don't think anything of it, and then it becomes like a cult classic or something. It's extraordinary.
It finds its way, to an audience or people. Sometimes because we're in showbiz, we get into all the aspects of what makes a movie. It has to be lighting and camera and music and all that. An audience is not tripping at that acute. They just absorb what's going on and they follow a story. And either they go with the story or they don't, which is how it should be. And that's what really makes sense. If they can follow it and say, man, well, I believe the hero, or I believe the through line, protagonist character, or whatever they're supposed to be trying to achieve, I can follow that. And that was a good outcome. And I go, well, wow, okay. Then that's what matters. I know we can all, as long as I've been around, somebody can get a little jaded if you don't watch it, because we have such opinions, and we think we know so much. Well, we sometimes have to go let some of it go or relearn. You never stop learning. I'm not going to allow myself not to keep learning. So that's the That's the springboard to come from and to keep growing all the time. That is it.
You know, you have a pastoral way about you that I think has been absorbed by the family, the parents. There is a healing way about you, just the way you're presenting everything. It's very inspiring, very motivating.
It's my mother, man. I'll be honest. You know, my mother, that was her. She just was full of nature and life. And I mean, she became a minister later on, but she was just so involving, and everybody was included. But then she always could see clear, but she never was a chump, you know, to be taken. That was instilled in us as kids. Not only that, also to always have etiquette, to have a sense of manners, to be clean. My house is like the Board of Health can come through anytime. It's always neat. These are things that instill you. That becomes part of your character, how you're going to envelope yourself into life. So Clothilda Anna Jacobs gave me that, as she gave her other 8 children. So I almost got a little emotional because my mom's long gone. And wow, how lucky am I? Wow. Thank you, Mom.
Yes. She's with us in spirit. She's here.
Oh, yeah.
She's listening. Yep. She's listening.
Yeah.
And, but obviously, you know, the mark made was deep and extraordinary and long lasting. And there's aspects of it and everything you do, Larry. And I think that's why your phone rings. Like I said, people just like to be around you. They like your energy. They like what you bring to the table. They like your humor, your passion, and your heart.
They like my empanadas, man. That's what they like.
The empanadas, the mac and cheese.
And my mac and cheese.
They're not dumb, but they like. But you're a cool guy to hang with, I'm sure, and shoot the breeze. And you've got people's back, and you've been there. You've done it. Nothing is perfect. The ride hasn't been all roses and wine. You've had to earn it, and you've come up the ranks, and you've taken these roles on, but you've appreciated it, and you've shared the joy with others, which I think
is why, you know, Jim, it's not what's so hard about being nice.
Exactly. I
mean, that's a choice. You can choose to be a knucklehead or not. So why not take the latter? You know, that's what it is. You know, or sometimes people will come opposing. I mean, you know, sometimes I'm in New York and some tough guy will want to walk up. I'm still the dude from the project, so that ain't changed. You know, but they'll put me. I said, man, chill, man. I said, you don't have to confront me or play me. Step back. You know, and that's all I'm going to tell them. You know, and so this is life. I'm not saying it's always combative like that, but you know, we have to deal with the variables of who we are, and that comes from our truth. You know, and our honesty. That's what it's all based out of. That's the key to me as being an actor. When I talk to young actors, they say, what is the through line? I said, you have to be honest because we know our limitations. We know when we're BSing. So that's the blockage that's not going to let us make anything progress. Well, that goes into any station of life. If you have to get through high school, or you're trying to work your way into college, or you meet a new girl that you're trying to, you know, be close to and understanding, you have to give it time and give her time, or give your situations time to. And I don't like the word compromise. I say blend. You have to blend. It's like making a nice drink. You have to blend it until you get it to a nice consistency. And you go, she is cool. So there you go, man. Oh, man.
So if there's any problems or issues, I just give a call to Larry and everything will get straightened out.
Well, I hope so. You know, I mean, we can talk it through. You know, you got to make it tangible, so we put it out there at least.
You got to make it tangible, exactly. Desiree says he can cook, so you enjoy cooking.
Oh, she's still stolen my food a few times. She's a thief, man. She's getting all the good nourishment.
What is the I talked about the pinch of peas of rice from our neighbors from Trinidad, and you talked about the mac and cheese and empanadas. Do you have another? What's like if you wrote a cookbook?
Oh, I make all things. I make my roasted chicken when I make it, you know, and I sauteed in turkey gravy and I put vegetables in it. It has broccoli and all these wonderful things in it. My homemade chili is Texas chili, boy. It's really hearty and rich, you know, and I'm not gonna tell all the secrets, but there's a little thing I do in there that makes it work. My homemade chicken soup. It's almost like it's everything's in it, you know, and I put a little bit of cream of chicken soup in this so it has a nice thick consistency, but not so thick you can't drink it. It's beyond tasty. Whatever, you know, we make it hominy grits or breakfast, whatever it is, you know. I learned it from my mother, who was the great cook. I always seem to have been in the kitchen with her, or the one that always went to the grocery store with him. So I learned by being there. So thank you again, Mom. Mom is on point.
You watched and you took notes and you observed.
Right, that
What are
helped.
some, and it works out. They put you to work. What are some other things you like to do totally away from the industry? What balances you out? How do you unplug and then plug back in with this energy and juice you have?
It's just simple, you know. I mean, I just go to life, you know. I take my walks, you know. I hang out with good friends. I'll be with the grandbaby, you know. I don't know what we're gonna do when we're together. We just make it up, you know. Sometimes I like to be with me, you know, and just chill out. And I seem to be like a documentary junkie, so I'm always watching film or gangster documentaries, whatever it is. You know, I like to just learn where things came from and why they were, with whether it's the making of a movie or what's the origin of the mafia or the World War II, or it can be about, you know, somebody's paint. That stuff is, you know, may not be exciting to talk about, but it's interesting for me to absorb it in my privacy. I'm pretty simple in my tastes, you know, and so I just let that kind of, you know, I just go with the flow, real easy, and I don't think about show business until I have to think about it.
Do you ever have a chance to perform at the Apollo Theater over the years?
Never performed at the Apollo, grew up in the Apollo, been there many times. And recently I was at the Apollo. They had a screening of my movie, Claudine, a 50th anniversary. So I was there for a Q&A, you know, in the last 7, 8, 9 months. But no, never performed at the Apollo. Just had been going there since I was a little kid, you know, all my life.
Claudine, you know, when you say you talk about 50th and everything else, it's hard to believe, isn't it? That it went by in a New York minute, huh?
Yeah, man. You know, I mean, time is not to be wasted. You certainly learn that when you get older. You know, every moment has to have a reason or has to count. It doesn't have to be the biggest deal, but it is a deal that matters. And so this is what we do when we're young. You know, we want to leave the world breathless. You know, we don't want to know, hear anything, or we don't want to hear it until we become 55 and now we're trying to play catch up. You know, that's not the way to do it. And a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but a way to do it is to try to instill it in young people so they can at least have that merit to know that they don't maybe know what you're talking about now, but they can get to a certain age and go, that's what that is. At least have something they can deal with. Now it's tangible for them, or solid, you know, and they can figure it out. You know, instead of be going, I don't know, and all that. You know, we can always keep on, you know, getting smarter and get a little more educated. And it doesn't have to be complicated or layered. It could be something as simple as today I want to just be a bum, or I forgot my cell phone today. Well, forget it. I'll get it later. Don't let the stress take you. I tell you who told it to me years ago. I was talking with Bernie Mac on the phone one time. And Bernie Mac said this to me real simple. He says, man, brother, I'm about keeping the stress less express. It made sense to me. You know, keep the stress less express. So you get rid of the cobwebs away so you can have some clarity. That's all it means, man. And so this is life. This is how we should adopt this as people, and we should try to ingrain it in each other all the time in our simplicity, you know, in my, you know, empanadas or my mac and cheese, you know.
Is there a book in the offing, an autobiography, a memoir?
Oh man, I've been asked that a few times, and I guess
sure you have.
Yeah, it'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah. Something to look forward to then.
Yeah.
What would the Larry of today say to this Larry here?
Nobody's that young. That's what he was saying. I mean, you know, we're full of just vibrancy and aliveness and happiness and excited, you know, to do the work, which I still am, you know. But it was a different thing. I was 21 years old then, you know. I just come off of doing Claudine and Cooley High, and so it was a wonderful, you know, high to be on. That was positive, you know. So what would I say to that guy? I said, hey man, you know, you're gonna be all right in the future, man. So take a chill pill, brother, and enjoy the ride. Yeah.
Were you hard on yourself earlier and have relaxed on, you know, giving yourself some space to breathe? Were you always go-getter?
You have to balance it all the time. I'm always tough on myself.
Yeah.
But, you know, also, like I said, I take those in-between moments just to chill out and go take my long walks or hang out with some good friends or have some people come over and have a little dinner or, you know, whatever, you know, or some family time, which I always am getting into. You know, that's how you do it. I mean, you know, I do it in my privacy a lot, you know, when I'm trying to figure out how to write a script or figure out how to play a role, or if I do artwork, or if I'm trying to do some art, or for my movies, I do my own storyboards. So trying to figure them out is very involving. And because I'm very visual and I want it to be certain ways, I draw the actual angle, whatever it's going to be. Well, that takes some doing. And sometimes I put myself in my own, you know, vice grip to get around that, but I figure it out because I know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. That's the kind of thought that gets me through, those variables. I don't like to dwell on depression because it doesn't help. All it does is makes you feel bad and gives you a headache. That's the same thing that arguments do. Arguing just gives you a sore throat. So let's get that out of the way as soon as we can, and let's pay attention to the real deal of what we're talking about, and not all the variables or the adrenaline rush of what anger will take you into and all that. I'm not into that. Let's focus in and talk about what's going on. Yes, you were full of it. All right. Now let's get that so you don't have to be. That is truth to me. So there's me.
I love that. Preach, preach, preach. I love that. And I'm going to use that too. Arguments just give you nothing but a sore throat. You've got these zingers. They're fantastic.
Yeah, it's real, man.
He's going to put these in a book.
Yeah, man.
They're great. They're life lessons, They really are life lessons.
It's all learned. As you say, there are life lessons. We learned this, and if we're paying attention, then we should grow from it, or at least make it work for us instead of just, repeating it over and over with no resolution. What is that about?
I know.
It's childish and silly.
You're the best, my friend. Truly, it was an honor and a pleasure to welcome you to our show. And,
thank you, Mr. Masters.
Get a chance to learn a little bit more about you and celebrate your amazing career and all you've done. And
I appreciate
your passion and just the joy of life and sharing it with everybody you do. And I hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have with you.
Absolutely, man. I think you're real good. You definitely did your homework. I love that part. And you're just a real easy. I feel like I went to high school with you or something, man. So we're cool, man. We're instant lock. So my pleasure all the way. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just across the bridge over on Long Island. That's where I was. So
okay.
We're neighbors.
There you go. Not too far. Yeah.
Not too far at all. You're the best, my friend. Truly. Congratulations on everything.
Thanks,
and
Jim. Thank you
we're going to keep that porch light on for you. You're welcome back anytime.
I love it. We'll do it again. All right, baby. Keep it real.
Well, thanks for the generosity of the time, too. I appreciate it.
Okay, bro. Keep it to you.
And love from the East Coast.
You got it.
Take care.
All right.
Isn't he amazing? Wow, folks. That I know a little bit of an echo there. There was something coming out of his speakers that was sort of echoing back, but you got the gist of it all. That was a terrific conversation. And that's what we do here. If this is your first time watching us on JMS, the Jim Masters Show. We don't just do interviews, we have conversations. And this time we welcomed an iconic figure in television and film and stage, Broadway and music, Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs. And now you know he really doesn't have the hyphen anywhere. He's moved it around. He sometimes between the Lawrence and the Hilton, the Jacobs, but there is actually no hyphen at all. But he laughs when he sees people put it between, Hilton and Jacobs and Lawrence and Hilton. And I knew that beforehand that he didn't have the hyphen, but you'll see it everywhere. There's a hyphen there. There's a hyphen there. Bottom line, he's a cool guy. He's a great guy. He's a New York kid who did good and comes from a wonderful family and parents that really instilled some amazing things in him that he carries through with him, not only in his performances, but also in life with his family, with how he carries himself, handles himself, the conversations. I loved what he talked about as far as telling the earlier version of himself to chill and it'll be okay and you'll be all right. And such an early age to be in such iconic and epic films of our time. Amazing things like Claudia and, as he mentioned, Cooley High, and still staying friends, the two. Isn't that amazing? And of course, welcome back, Kotter. And there are the Sweat Hogs, and there's the whole gang. And you could still see that in reruns on television. It's never been off the air since, the 1970s, originally on ABC. And of course, he was Freddie Boom Boom Washington, an iconic figure, an iconic character, and in Youngblood and the iconic Roots and so much more, and all the TV shows of the day, episodes of Barnaby Jones, and of course, the Annihilators, he's in that as well, and LA Heat, and of course the Jacksons. Did you see him in the Jacksons playing the father, the patriarch Joe Jackson, The Jacksons, An American Dream. He was unbelievable in that. Did you know he was also on an episode of Simon and Simon? He was also in Rituals, New Love American Style. He played Lamar in an episode of Fame in 1986. Did you know he was also in Lewis and Clark and Dark Room and Paris, and even an episode of Beretta in 1976, Mr. T and Tina as well. All kinds of shows. That's So Raven with Simone. What you're looking at there again is from the Jacksons, but really amazing stuff, right, gang? You probably are saying to yourself, I didn't realize he was in this, and he was in that, and he was in this, and he was in that. It's when you look at it, it's amazing. Episode of Girlfriends as well, and Players at Poker Palace, Chuck, Let's Stay Together, Family Time. As I mentioned, A House Divided, The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, 2 episodes, 2022 to 2023. And he's award-winning, nominated, winning, all of it. He's done it all. 30 Miles, Don't Give Me the Finger, Sublime, Otis, Young American Gangsters, The Street Sweeper, Tidal Wave, No Escape, Tuesday Never Comes, Quiet Fire, East LA Warriors, LA Vice, Angels of the City. Just incredible. Just turn on your TV and or rent a movie and he'll be in it, because he's really a legend. And it really was a great conversation to have an opportunity to hear from him. And I like the guests. Just let them roll. I don't want to interrupt the guests. I want to have a good conversation and let them roll. And he's a great conversationalist, Larry. And we know him as Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs, but everybody affectionately calls him Larry, from New York, and still at it. He's out there in Beverly Hills, LA, with his wonderful family. He's grounded, he's confident, he's resilient, and he's a good guy with a good heart. And I bet you are very happy to hear that, right? You've seen him on television, you've seen him in the movies, probably heard his music on stage. You probably always wonder, what are these people like? Are they really like the characters that they've played on television or in the movies? Are they as nice as I hope they are? Well, one of the things about the Jim Masters Show, Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series, is because I give our guests room to emote, to express, not to feel rushed through, not to just have, standard questions being asked. Not reading from a script or a teleprompter, not everything so tight and scripted, having it much more free-flowing so they can emote and share, and you get a chance to experience the real them as much as we can through the technology. And I think that really happened here, as it always happens with all of our guests at this unique show we call the Jim Masters Show. Hey, gang, we recently had a massive 5th anniversary celebration. We had so many celebrity friends and special guests who had wonderful things to say. That 3-hour epic extravaganza marking 5 years of our series is available for your watching and binge watching enjoyment on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. Check it out. You'll hear from Melissa Manchester, Lucy Arnaz, Tony Orlando, Patrick Duffy, Linda Pearl, and so many other incredible friends who had some wonderful, beautiful things to say. Even Sir James Galway sent a video in. He's the legendary musician, music legend, Irish flautist, and he sent in a video today on behalf of himself and Lady Jean Galway and their dear friends of mine. Just really amazing. All these incredible people. It's really amazing. We have a waiting line of guests that want to get on our show, which I think is a blessing after 5 years and over 1,300 episodes. It's just so amazing. And we get wonderful people like Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs, Larry, joining us here on the show. And there he is on American Bandstand back in 1975, talking to Dick Clark, one of the iconic television hosts and producers in this industry. I've always revered him. And thanks to all these fabulous folks. We see a lot of new faces in our chat room and our regulars too. Kathleen and Jane and Sherry and Maureen and Merlin and some of the faithful regulars as well joining us here, and a lot of new faces. If this is your first time joining us on the Jim Masters Show Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series, don't be a stranger. Come back and see us, have some more fun with us. Give this episode a thumbs up like. Click like on the thumbs up that's on the YouTube channel. Share this episode on social media. Share the link. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, which is the channel you're watching right now, our YouTube channel, and leave a comment below. Maybe you really enjoyed this conversation and you would love to share perhaps some comments about it. Maybe there's some things you'd like to share about some of the points that were made by Larry during the conversation. It is very inspiring, isn't he? Very empowering through his, in a pastoral way, through his answers and the way that he presents himself, which I think is fantastic. I picked up on that right away. We're sort of kindred spirits in that way. But yeah, leave a comment for us. And maybe you loved watching him on Welcome Back, Kotter, maybe in Claudine or other movies and TV commercials and everything he's done. He has his hands and has always had his hands in just about all aspects of the industry. Also a producer, a writer, a director as well. Cool stuff, folks. Again, we had a little bit of an echo there. I know that was coming from, I think, on his side. The speakers might have been a little bit too close to the microphone. We were trying to play with it before we went live, but you got to hear him and me and have a wonderful conversation. And that is the bottom line. Thanks, gang, for all these great comments. Loving the show. You're very welcome. I see all the beautiful words coming in here. We love having you here. Come see us again. Binge watch some of your favorite celebrity friends and guests on over 1,300 episodes here on the show. And yeah, you know, if you didn't get a chance to see the 5th anniversary episode, there were, again, a couple of people that said some beautiful things. And you could see that whole episode archived on a YouTube channel. But here's one or two maybe we'll sprinkle in from some of our dear friends that wanted to share a few things, like Melissa Manchester.
Hi, Jim Masters. Melissa Manchester here, wishing you a heartfelt congratulations on the 5th anniversary of the Jim Masters Show. Commander of the Levities, may you have a splendid celebration. Congratulations once again.
We love Melissa Manchester and our buddy, the one and only Tony Orlando.
Well, Jim Masters, 5-year anniversary. Congratulations. Let me just share this with you, okay? We're living in a podcast time. Hundreds of millions of podcasts. And I've had the opportunity to do many of those. I just want you to know that you made me welcome. You knew what you're talking about. We became friends from the very moment we started our interview, and we'll continue to be friends. I'm so happy for you. 5 strong years. And everybody I speak to, those people who watch the interview on your podcast, and my buddies and friends who have done your podcast, we all agree you're very special. Thank you for thinking of me and always having me part of your podcast. And anytime you ever need me, please call me or want me to be on. It's a privilege to be on your show. God bless you and continued success to one of the best in the industry. God love you, Jim. Congratulations. 5 big ones. Yes, sir.
We love Tony Orlando. He's such a great guy, a legend himself, and a dear friend. Here's one that we got just after the 5th anniversary special, but I wanted to show it to you right now while we're here. The legendary Sir James Galway. James Galway has sold over 30 million albums. He's one of the most revered musicians and Irish virtuoso flautists in the entire world. And he and his lovely bride, Lady Jean Galway, he's from Ireland. She's from New York originally. We've worked together, actually. We've become dear friends. We actually worked on a fabulous Christmas concert at Carnegie Hall with our dear friend Tim Janis and company. And he wanted to be a part of the 5th anniversary. So he sent this in. He plays a little flute and then a couple of words. Again, he's been around for decades. He's a legend. And this is a blessing to get these words from the incomparable Sir James Galway and Lady Jane Galway. Here he is.
Congratulations, Jim Masters, on your 5th anniversary. It's great to be able to talk to you. And this greeting is coming from Sir James and Lady Galway.
So beautiful. Patrick Duffy and Linda Pearl.
Hey.
Hey, Jim Masters, congratulations.
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, just more than a toddler.
Yeah. Have a wonderful next 5 and 50 years ahead of you, and thank you so much for having swell people, including us, on your show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Bye.
Lucy Arnez, and she's funny. She says 25 years. I'm like, 25 years?
Hey, Jim, it's me, Lucy Arnez. I just wanted to wish you congratulations on 25 years. Holy cow, I remember when you were just an anchor guy out on the street doing, people stories. And now here you are with your own fabulous show online, and you've interviewed everybody in the world, including me several times. And you've always been a fantastic support, always letting people know what I'm doing and my history. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. We love you, and we wish you continued success. And how about 24, 25, or maybe 35 more years? Congratulations.
25, 35. Maybe, right? As long as you're there, we'll be here as well. Susan Lanier, who starred in Wes Craven's original The Hills Have Eyes. She's a dear friend as well.
Hi there. I'm Susan Lanier, best known for starring in Wes Craven's the original The Hills Have Eyes, as well as other comedy TV shows and music. And I just wanted to say congratulations to Jim Masters. 5 years of the Jim Masters Show, 1,300 episodes is quite the accomplishment. I am so happy for you. I had so much fun doing your show. And thank you for inviting me to do it. And I really want you to ask me again. I look forward to doing the next one. Again, Jim, congratulations.
So wonderful, so kind, and we thank them. That's just a few of the many that we shared on our 5th anniversary episode. So check that out on our YouTube channel. Always a pleasure to have you here, everybody. We love having you here. And once again, we really thank Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs, Larry, for spending all this time with us and sharing his wit and wisdom and his take on life. It really was a great, great conversation. If this was your first time here, welcome. We hope you'll join us again. And you can also follow us on social media, on X and Instagram and Facebook at Jim Masters TV. All right, we're going to scoot out. Stick with us for more great episodes coming up right here for you on the Jim Masters Show, Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series. For all of us, be well, take care. I see more comments still coming in here. Thank you, everybody, for all these great words, these loving thoughts. We really appreciate it. We'll see you on the next episode. Don't forget to take care of one another, love one another, and don't forget to do the very same for yourself. Love having you here. Thanks for joining us, and cheers.